The sun was setting over the horizon as she brought me another drink. A pretty waitress. Dark skin, long black hair tied back in a ponytail, flowers around her neck. I was having trouble deciding which one was more beautiful, dusk over the ocean or her. My entire mind was telling me it was the latter. After everything I've been through though, I couldn't get the nerve to ask for her number, even as she flashed a coy smile at me and turned to walk away. Everything was perfect. The sunset, the drink, finally being on a damn vacation after working my ass off for the collective these past 2 decades. Not a worry in sight. Except I could hear this nagging sound, high-pitched ringing right below the surface of my mind. It was constant, wouldn't leave no matter how many times I tried swatting away an unseen bug. Oh hell. I woke up, my phone ringing off the damned hook with that one dreaded word showing me exactly who was calling. Work. Letting out a groan, already missing the beach and pretty girl bringing me drinks, I picked up and hit the green button. "Yeah, what's up?" I asked, knowing that it was probably going to be some more insanity. Never a day off in this line of work. "There's a car waiting for you outside. We need you to come in ASAP." The voice on the other line was short and to the point. "Another tear?" I tried asking, knowing there wasn't going to be any answer, but pushing my luck anyway. Their only response was silence. Checking the screen, they had already hung up. Of course, good talk. Even though I didn't want to, I rolled out of bed, standing up and stretching before pulling curtains aside to look out. There waiting on the street was a black SUV, lights on, just waiting for me to step out and get in. God, I hate it when they pull this secretive government agency bullshit. It's so melodramatic. Hell, the HQ is only a couple miles down the road. I could easily get there within a few minutes if they just asked me to. Instead, they have to send these stupid cars to make it look like I'm going to get kidnapped with a bag over my head to never be seen again. Just for the hell of it, I made them wait while I grabbed coffee and got dressed. Hell, the driver is probably getting paid by the hour. They should thank me. It's not like collective higher-ups are going to give a damn if I'm a few minutes late anyway, right? Not to mention, it's 3 in the damn morning, so my restful sleep and nice dream got interrupted. I at least need some coffee as compensation. The driver didn't say anything to me as I got in the car, just started driving me towards downtown. I sipped my coffee as we went, curious about what kind of fresh hell the collective was calling me in for at this hour. Think I'm going to demand some vacation time after this, no matter how small time the job may be. I've earned it, damn it. Especially after all that I've done with the Cognizant program and closing up these damn dimensional tears. God, please don't let this be another tear. A reality aberration that comes through to our world that I can deal with. A whole tear in the fabric of reality though? I've only got so many of those left in me before they take me out for good. Hopefully, they at least give me a damn good team for this one if that's the case. The Collective HQ was a tall, unassuming building in the middle of downtown. A little sign on the front had it labeled as a marketing agency, though I have no clue if there was any marketing business run out of the upper floors. Hell, I have no idea why the building was so tall. Everything that we worked with in the collective was underground, in a massive network of tunnels and sub-basements right below our feet. This place stretched for miles and held unspeakable horrors from the aberrations that we had put away in years past. If this place ever came under attack or fell in some way, well, humanity isn't far behind. In our universe at least. The driver parked on the curb, still not saying a word as the doors unlocked and I stepped out. Humid hot air rushed past me as I quickly walked towards the building, pushing through the double doors and making my way across the lobby to the elevator. The usual spot, sub-basement 4 lit up as I scanned my badge on the elevator console. A brief hum and stutter, then the elevator was hitting down. It opened into the same off-white fluorescent lit hallways that I've been seeing for the past 20 years. Hell, I don't think I remember a time before the collective at this point. Just endless chases to close tears and capture aberrations. The hallway was almost empty here, despite the constant bustle that this place has going on. After a few minutes of walking alone, I finally saw an older man standing outside one of the briefing room doors. "Agent Harker, good to see you again." Ronald, the old man, stuck out a hand to shake. I took it, giving one good grip before letting go and following him into the room as he started speaking. "Though I'm sure you can't say the same. Always some new shit show when we have to call you in. Interrupted a nice dream I was having. I grunted, taking a seat at the small table and opening the folder he threw down in front of me. For a second, I thought the pictures inside were black and white, but after staring for a moment, I realized I was looking at a bleak icy landscape. So, where are you sending me? Arctic, Ronald said, sitting down across from me. We have a hell of a problem, pardon the pun. Scanning over the file, I started to put together what he was talking about. Arctic Research Base. Studies in occult powers that open a tear between dimensions. Jesus, the Nazis? Been a while since I've seen these bastards involved in anything. How the hell is a Nazi base still holding out in 2025? I asked, looking up at him. Honestly, I'm as surprised as you are. We only just found out about this place from a defector that showed up on our doorstep. Said there's been this faction of the SS out there before since Hitler. Apparently, they just holed up and didn't leave after he decided to have himself a little lad snack down in that bunker. Kind of became their own thing, looking for ways to bring him back through unnatural processes. Ronald said, leaning back in his chair and lighting up a cigarette. Sure as shit, they found a way too. You're fucking with me. I'm hunting down Hitler? I said, looking up at him from the files. If only it was just that. God, what a clusterfuck. Ronald shook his head, now leaning forward and taking a long drag of his cigarette before going on. They open a portal to hell, Harker. Oh, come on, I said, pushing the file away and rubbing my eyes. It was way too early in the morning for shit like this. So this isn't just a tear we're dealing with, but a straight-up hellscape? Yes, and it's spreading. The longer the portal is open, the more ground it starts to cover. Currently, it's infected a 5-mile radius from the base. Thankfully, they put the damn thing in the Arctic instead of somewhere on their home turf at the time. He replied. How long has it been open for that it's taken that much space? I feel like I already knew the answer. And how long until it spreads beyond the wastes out there? It's been a week, according to our source. He said, another long drag on the sick. And according to calculations, we have a month before it starts creeping towards the shores of Greenland and northern Canada. So we're on a major time crunch. Oh hell, I muttered, to which Ronald let out a dry laugh. Quite literally, yes, he responded. You'll be going in with a 3-person team. One occult specialist, Vera, will be able to close the portal through a ritual. The other 2, Pitt and Marcus, will be your muscle and demo experts. I've also given approval for the defector to go with you as a guide. Her name is Celine. Quite a nice woman, surprisingly. Said she always wanted to get out of the cult, but had no way to escape until now. Watch out that she doesn't double-cross you. Think she will? I asked, eyeing him. Ronald usually had a good nose for things like treason and betrayal, but I also knew he had a history of being soft on pretty women. From the picture of her in the file, she was definitely in that category. Early 30s, long dark hair, deep green eyes, and a soft face that had definitely been through some shit. With any luck, she was telling the truth and just wanted to get out of the hellhole she escaped from. Worst comes to worst, she dies with the rest of them when we close the portal. I certainly hope she doesn't. She could be a valuable asset, he said, stamping out the now spent sick in an ashtray on the table. Speaking of assets, nothing leaves this place. Understood? No liabilities, no survivors. Whoa, hold on. You said this was basically a compound, right? Families and stuff? You know I don't kill kids. Not doing it, I said, starting to stand up and looking right at him in the eyes. You don't have to worry about killing any kids. How do you think they opened the portal? He said, getting up and opening the door for me. I just stared at him for a moment, dumbfounded. All he could do was nod, closing his eyes and brushing his hair back while reaching in his pocket for another cig. Yeah, ask her about what happened on your way there. It's, well, I don't use the term fucked up lightly, you know. I left the room, heading downstairs to the armory where I could pick out whatever weapons and ammo might be needed for the situation. To my surprise, the rest of the team was already waiting down there. Vera, a woman my age with dark auburn hair and slender frame, gave me a wave as I walked in. We worked together before on a tulpa case down in New Orleans years ago, and I'm pretty sure she saved my ass more than once on that trip. The others, Pitt and Marcus, looked like the number 10 standing next to each other. Pitt was tall, wiry, with a big bald spot beginning to show on his head even though he was barely past his 30s. Marcus, meanwhile, was one of those guys that looked like he was heavy-set, but was really just an insane amount of muscle disguised by his build with a massive bushy beard to match. They were taking guns and explosives off the walls, stuffing them into tactical bags as preparation. I made my way to Vera for a rundown on what they had so far. "Got the essentials?" I asked. She just nodded in response, tossing me a jar of clear liquid. "Holy water. I've already put in an order for our ammo to be dipped and consecrated while they're at it too." "Ronnie give you the rundown on what we're after already?" She replied. "Nazis, a hellgate, the frozen tundra of the Arctic. I've played Wolfenstein before. We'll be alright." I sighed. She just chuckled. "If only it was that easy," she said. "Look, if we run into Mecha Hitler, then I'll worry," I joked, half flirting with her. I try to stay away from interwork relationships, but she was. Wow, not much else to say there. Her smile was dazzling. "Think you two can wait to fuck after the mission is over?" Pitt shouted across the room. I flipped the middle finger at him as Vera just laughed, turning back to her work. In her tack bag, I saw the usual arsenal for fighting off the unholy. Holy water, a couple of crosses, and quite a few old, dusty books with strange runes on the front. Likely Aramaic, used for casting the rituals to close the portals, or open them, if that's something one was stupid enough to try. "Where's the defector?" I asked, looking around now. My question was answered almost immediately. She was sitting next to one of the far walls, staring straight ahead as if there was nothing going on around her. Poor woman had that vacant 1,000-yard stare that I've seen so many times on these missions after something bad has happened. "Jesus, she looks rough." "Yeah, she's been through some shit," Vera replied. We continued preparing in relative silence, gathering weapons, ensuring we had everything possible we may need to face the threat of hell we were walking into. After about 2 hours, we were ready. Heading up to the roof, a chopper was waiting for us, ready to fly us over to the airport for the long flight ahead. It was a short ride, everyone sitting in quiet as the hum of the blades above drowned out any attempt at conversation. When the airfield appeared, a cargo jet was waiting for us, already loaded with comms equipment so we could report back to HQ as needed for backup or to just send updates. We loaded in, taking off not long after. We all sat, saying nothing as the ground was left far behind, the relative safety of home with it. "So, you were a Nazi?" Marcus asked Celine, almost point blank, breaking the silence as we flew. Pitt let out a laugh as Vera just groaned. "Don't antagonize her, Marcus. She's the one guiding us when we get there," I said. "No, it's fine," Celine replied. Her voice was soft, quiet, a slight tinge of a German accent underlying her English. "I was born as one of them, yes. Now, I want all of them to burn." "Hell yeah, I'll drink to that," Marcus said, raising a small flask. Vera smacked it from his hand, spilling an unknown spirit all over the floor. "Hey, that was my only one." "You're about to go on a very dangerous mission where all of us are risking our lives. You can handle being sober until we make it back alive." "Jesus," Vera scolded him, making him turn bright red under the bushy beard. She turned back to Celine. "What made you want to get out?" "I grew up hearing all about the glory of the Reich, being told that we were the ones who were going to restore power to this world." She started, sitting forward with a sigh. "Do you have any idea what it's like growing up and never seeing the sun? It's cold up there. We were told we could never go outside, never let the corruption of the world in. We were told we had to stay pure for the day the Führer returned." "Oh, here we fucking go," Pitt whispered, grabbing Marcus's flask from the floor and tipping it up to his mouth for any tracks of alcohol he could manage. "When I was 20, I was chosen. I was one of the ones who would keep the Führer's legacy alive, even after he had been gone for decades. Through some of our scientists, I was given a child, a beautiful daughter I named Anneliese. She was strong, beautiful. I raised her to be kind and caring to those around her. She was the only warmth I ever felt in that cold compound. So long as she was near me, the light of 1,000 suns paled in comparison. Then, Then they took her from me," she said, eyes going cold as small tears began to form in the corners. These bastards. They held me back as I screamed and clawed at them to let me go. Let me take her from there. I saw them lead her into a circle with the other children and slit her throat, spilling blood onto the gateway. They traded her life for power, without ever thinking that she could be destined for greater things. She broke down crying now. As Vera moved over to put a hand on her shoulder, choking back tears, Celine continued. "I swear I will slit their throat myself," she whispered now, tears ending as she came back to being cold and detached. "They have taken the only sunlight I've ever known. I shall make them feel the cold absence of the sun for eternity in return." "Fuck, that's metal." Marcus let out a low whistle as I kicked him in the shin, shushing him in the process. "Estimated arrival in 5 hours. A voice came over the plane comms. "Alright, everyone get some rest and be ready to go as soon as we reach the destination. Got it?" I said, getting nods from the rest. I sat back in the hard seat, closing my eyes and leaning my head back, letting the hum of the wind outside lull me to the last peaceful sleep I may ever get. Holy shit, look at that! I could hear Pitt shouting as the plane went through turbulence, shocking me awake in my seat. I rubbed sleep from my eyes, shaking my head as the weight of exhaustion tried to close them again. Pitt shouted again. "Harker, seriously, come over here and look." Yeah, on my way," I said, getting to my feet and desperately trying to stay steady as the plane lurched to one side. "Oh hell, it's coming at us," Marcus shouted, diving past me back to his seat. "The hell are you talking about?" My question was barely out before I got to the window and saw for myself. I'll be damned. A massive creature was flying right beside our plane, at least half the size of the cargo jet we were on. It was, well, I don't think there was any way it was friendly. Long leathery wings held it aloft, flapping in the cold air. Its head was vaguely human, with a pointed reptilian snout that ended in slits. A jaw full of sharp teeth was set under. But the biggest thing that stood out was twofold eyes that looked like they were at the same time black as soot and blazing with fire. Atop its head were massive, curling horns that looked like they could easily core through a horse and keep going if it chose to. I swear it looked directly at me before diving at the plane again, sideswiping it with a massive humanoid hand that ended in sharp claws. We could hear metal tear as it breached the hull, sending the plane careening off in the other direction for a moment. "Everyone, hang on to something. We're going down." The pilot came over the PA with a warning, right as the demon made another swipe, this time cleaving the right wing straight off the plane. Alarms began blaring as we quickly began to tip forward, gravity taking hold as pilots desperately tried to keep us steady. I could feel the plane trying to spin, keeling one way as the demon let out a screech that could be heard over the wind and blaring alarms, full of anger, pain and hatred all at the same time. "Strap in!" I shouted at the others as we all dragged ourselves to our seats, working against multitudes of G-forces that were trying to throw me every way possible. I managed to get back into my seat and pull the belt over my body. There was nothing I could do but close my eyes, grit my teeth, and pray we didn't end up as a bloody smear on the ice outside. The howl of the demon came through the hull again, telling us that even if we made it out of this, there was more to contend with if we wanted to survive. Sounds of wind mixed with the alarm as we spun faster and faster. One of the others, I think Pitt, started making retching noises as we went down, spewing up whatever little food he had in his stomach alongside the alcohol. I held on tight, trying to make sure my body wasn't too tense because it would only make the impact even worse when we finally hit the ground. "Alright, we're coming in hot. I'm going to give them a little surprise though. I can see the base," the pilot said over the comms before another ungodly sound of metal tearing interrupted him. The plane pulled to one side, leveling out for a brief second before we could feel ourselves drop through the air once more. Just for a moment, there was peace. The next moment, we were all jolted by the impact as the plane hit the ground, throwing debris everywhere. I was knocked out, though only for a few minutes, I think. When I awoke, the alarm was still blaring, but Vera was standing above me, desperately trying to undo my seatbelt and pull me from the wreckage. Looking around, I could see the others all still alive, working to get their equipment from the quickly burning wreckage as flames began to catch. I got my wits about me, walking out of the downed plane and seeing where we crashed. The moment the Arctic cold hit me, I was ready to throw myself back in the flames. The others walked out beside me, looking at the small building we had crashed maybe 50 feet from, with just one double door on the side as an entrance. We looked back to see the pilot clambering out of the cockpit, hitting our way as we heard the hellish screech from above. That thing was coming back around, looking for any survivors that it could tear apart with those wicked claws. "Don't worry about equipment. We need to get the hell away from that thing," I shouted, pulling a pistol from my side and starting to run for the doors. The rest got the idea, including Celine, and broke out into a desperate sprint towards the bunker entrance. We all hit the door at once, trying to force it open as the demon came diving from above. As Marcus and Pitt pushed against the iced-over mechanism on the door, I pulled back, firing a shot at the demon to try and distract it. The pilot did the same, running off a few feet to try and distract so the rest of us could get in. "No, don't go too far." My warning didn't come nearly fast enough. Before we knew it, the pilot was gone, spirited into the air while sharp claws dug into him. The demon was carrying him in the lower claws where its feet were, and when it got up to a decent height above us, it made sure we knew what our fate would be if it got claws on us too. The damn thing grabbed the pilot by both feet, taking one in each hand and pulled apart like he was a fucking wishbone, tearing him clean in half down the middle. Blood rained down, steaming in the cold Arctic air before painting the icy tundra below in a terrible splatter. Hell with this. I made my way to the door, giving it a few good kicks to break the ice loose on the mechanism before it burst inward, warm air rushing out to meet us as the demon began to dive back down in our direction. We all ran in, throwing the doors closed behind us just as the demon crashed into them, almost coming right through, if not for its enormous size. We wasted no time running further in, straight down the staircase in front of us to get the hell away from not only the freezing cold, but the thing that was now bashing at the door, desperately trying to get in so it could tear us apart, just like the pilot. After 2 flights of stairs going straight down, we stopped to catch our breath, everyone letting out massive gasps as we struggled for air. "How the fuck do we get out of here now?" Pitt asked, still gasping for air as we all looked at each other. Vera just shook her head, looking to me as Marcus checked his bag, looking at the guns and explosives inside to prepare. I looked in my tack bag as well, pulling out a small paper that had a crude map Celine had drawn when she first arrived at the collective. "Looks like we're almost to the living quarters now. We'll look there for any communication equipment so we can send a message back home. Until we get rid of that thing though, there's not going to be a way for help to come get us," I said, looking to each of them in turn. Pitt was gritting his teeth as Marcus inspected guns, holding up an AR and loading in a Mac that he had a piece of tape unmarked. Holy shit. I looked to Vera with my next question. "We closed the portal. Does that get rid of the one up there?" "Theoretically, yes," she replied, hesitating for a moment. "But we should realistically prepare for every ounce of shit possible to hit the fan. The only information we have on Hellgate infestations is so outdated that we can't be sure what the hell will happen. Hell, the last time one was opened, they ended up just carpeting the entire area with blast bombs and hoping for the best. That was almost 70 years ago, I think. They didn't wait for the portal to close before the bombs started to fall." "Great, so this is even more of a side mission than what we signed up for. Fan-fucking-tastic," Marcus said, handing out more guns with crosses marked on the barrels. "Considering half our ammo is in that flaming pile outside, y'all better make every damn shot count." He handed one to Celine, a small pistol with one of the specially marked mags, before hesitating a moment and looking at me. I just nodded. From what she had told us on the plane, she was trustworthy. But first, I had to ask, "Did you know that thing would be up there?" "No," she shook her head. "When I left, everything was contained to the 4th and 5th sublevels. It's advanced quickly." She pointed to the staircase ahead of us. Descending into a dimly lit tunnel, a few feet in the dark concrete of the bunker began to look different. It began to bulge, like tumors were growing from the solid wall and becoming flesh. I could see veins creeping through it, something pumping and causing the walls themselves to pulsate with red and black fluid just under the gnarled surface. "Corruption," Vera whispered, walking a little closer to get a good look. I followed, trying to stop her from getting too close, before realizing it was no use. She was too inquisitive about what we were seeing. Leave it to the occultist to find a hallway of cancerous flesh and be fascinated instead of disgusted. She raised a hand to it before stopping herself. "You guys ever seen a lash egg?" Pitt remarked, looking almost sick as he gazed at the strange substance all over the walls. "Grew up on a farm. Went to crack an egg from the coops for breakfast one morning, and, well, it came out looking like that. God, I can still smell how awful it was." We shook it off, gathering our wits and making our next move down the hallway. Everyone was careful not to touch the walls, fearing that it may send some kind of alert to whatever denizens were lurking below. God knows the last thing we need is them to know we're already in here, assuming they weren't already alerted by the crash above. Actually, did nobody hear the crash? Where the hell is everyone? I asked, looking back at Celine as she simply shrugged. There weren't many of us left after the portal opened. Not many normal people anyways. A lot of us were relegated to the upper levels while the workers stayed below. Some said that the gate began to affect them, their minds becoming more corrupted as their exposure to hell grew. I don't know. I tried to avoid going anywhere near the gate after they took her, she answered. Hard to imagine you can corrupt Nazis beyond their default, Marcus said under his breath, getting a laugh out of Pitt. I shushed him as Celine grunted, moving further down the hallway. The smell hit me like a 10-ton truck full of rotten eggs, the worst stench of sulfur I've ever gotten in a full frontal blast, with an added undertone of rotting flesh to really just top off the awful scent Sunday that was coming from the other end of the hall. Dull lights hung from the ceiling, leaving us unsure of what may be waiting for us. I pulled up a cloth mask around my neck, desperately hoping it would stop the smell from permeating my nose, making my eyes water as it overwhelmed every sense. Pitt started retching nearby, leaning over near the wall and puking his guts out as the others bravely tried to soldier on. Jesus, that's awful, Vera said, covering her nose with her hand while keeping the other on her gun, pointed forward. Only going to get worse, I muttered. We continued to walk in silence, trying our best to overcome the intense smell and stay alert as shadows played on the flash-filled walls. I swear they were moving, pulsating like there was a pulse running through them. All I could feel was disgust. 2 decades in the collective, and this was by far one of the grossest things I've seen throughout my career, which was, well, the bar was really fucking high. Just keep moving and keep your eyes open, Celine said, now beginning to really come out of her shell. She had the gun at the ready, pointed forward like she was going to shoot the first damn thing she saw in here. Couldn't really blame her after everything she told us, but I had my worries that she might go a little too trigger happy. There was movement ahead, not from the living walls, but something moving through them. We heard heavy footsteps tapping along the concrete floor, when suddenly a person turned the corner ahead, coming right into our line of sight. At least, he was human at one point, I think. His face was bloody, with both eyes missing from pits of gore where they should have been. Despite the missing vision, it seemed to see us, stopping as it turned the corner and sizing us up for a moment, before opening its mouth to let out an inhuman screech that was subsequently cut short by a bullet fired from Celine's gun. It entered clean through one of the empty eye holes, a spray of blood signaling the exit wound from the back as it splattered the wall behind him, blending in with the exposed flesh beyond. So much for the stealth option, Marcus muttered, following it up with a creative string of curses I'll likely never hear again in my lifetime. We all decided to rush forward at the same time as the clattering of footsteps began to make their way from down the hall, rushing towards the source before they could overwhelm us. Turning the corner was a momentary mindfuck. Instead of another hallway or stairs, as we expected, it was a massive cavern, a metal clanging pathway leading precariously through a dark pit that looked to be filled with fire somewhere hundreds of feet below. The same flesh-colored walls lined everything, but there was no telling where the end was way down under us. The path was, well, to say I didn't trust it was an understatement. It was creaky from our first step, and looked like the slightest bit of weight would cause it to fall wildly into the pits of flame below. Any worries I had about the integrity of the walk were immediately thrown out of the window as I saw no less than 4 people coming across from a crevice in the other side of the cavern. They were rushing along the walkway towards us, eyes missing from their skulls just like the one back there, sharp teeth bared and covered in blood as each let out a loud, discordant scream to alert the others. We began to fire off shots, hitting the lead right in the head and causing him to tumble back into the others, knocking one of them over the railing. His body ragdolled down into the pit below, and I swear it looks like the flames came up to meet him. "Run through!" I shouted to the others, taking point and charging ahead. It only took moments to make contact with one, but rather than waste ammo, I crouched down, pushing up with my shoulder to throw him over the railing into the fire. The second one grabbed onto me, trying to push me over the rails after his comrades. It was stupidly strong, more than any human should be, and I could feel its hands beginning to crush my neck as it wrapped them around, my feet starting to lose contact with the walkway underneath as it pulled me up. The worst part though was its breath, hot with the smell of rotting flesh right in my face. I could see from this close that the empty eyes were well on their way to rotting, maggots crawling around inside and feasting on the necrotic flesh within. Just as I felt myself starting to lean over the railing, a knife went through the hit from Marcus and Pitt began pulling me back onto the walkway. We quickly pushed the now piled bodies through the bottom rails into the fire and kept moving towards the crevice. When we finally hit the other side, everyone almost collapsed, Pitt practically kissing the ground below as more creaks reminded us of how close we were to being up in flames behind us. "What the fuck was that? I thought this place was a bunker." Pitt was gasping from the ground nearby. "Hell gates don't just let demons through. They change the geography of everything as they spread," Vera said. She shook her head, letting out a deep sigh. "Expect much worse the further in we get. We're basically in hell already." "Fantastic," Marcus grunted, holstering his knife and pulling a light machine gun from his tack bag, loading another magazine marked as holy into it. "Glad I brought more fucking firepower then." "We're gonna need it," I said, nodding to him. "Thanks for the assist back there." "I'll bill you when we get out of here," he grunted back. "We're all billing Ronald double after this bullshit," Vera snorted. "A fucking man to that, sister," Pitt said, standing once more and moving forward. "Alright, onwards and downwards, folks." I began to lead the way, heading down the sloping path through the crevice. The walls of flesh all around us were pulsating more strongly now, like they were getting more energy the closer we were to the center. The lights began to dim as we went through, so we had to eventually turn our flashlights on, which made the place even more eerie. "So why can't you just close the gate from here if the corruption has made it this far?" Pitt asked Vera as we kept moving. "You think dealing with demons is that easy?" She scoffed, holding her gun ready in front of her, dust floating through the beam of her flashlight. "You can only close the door at the same point it's opened from. Otherwise, you risk blowing the entire thing even wider and damning even more people. You want to try that?" "You could have just said it wouldn't work and I would have believed you, you know," he mumbled back, taking it a little personally. The tunnel was only getting darker, walls of flesh fading from a deep crimson to black now, but still pulsating as we went on. A loud roar echoed through the tunnel, causing all of us to stop in our tracks. "The fuck is it this time?" Marcus asked, holding his gun steady, finger on the trigger. "Probably not friendly," Pitt mumbled angrily under his breath. We waited for a moment, prepared to see some kind of terror, but were relieved when nothing came into view. Another low rumble echoed through the tunnel, bouncing off the fleshy walls, but we still didn't see anything. "Keep moving," I said, trying to keep my voice low so as to not alert anything that might be listening up ahead. We moved on, steady, silent, straining to hear any noise that may alert us to new dangers in this hellscape. Another roar erupted through the tunnel, but this time from behind us. We all turned, unsure of how anything could get there. But sure enough, a massive beast was charging at us from the direction we had come from. It was huge, reptilian scales jutting from its skin as it came screaming down the hallway on all 4 limbs. Massive horns tilted down and ready to gore anyone that it was able to catch. We all began to run, throwing caution to the wind regarding anything that may be up ahead, only wishing to not get caught by this thing, now gnashing teeth as it gained ground on us rapidly. The light from up ahead told us we were almost out, though whether that was a good thing was yet to be seen. Upon exiting the tunnel, we realized it was a frying pan and fire situation, and the fire was fucking everywhere. There wasn't even a cavern anymore. We had seemingly stepped through the front door right into hell itself, with an open sky before us, flames spouting from the ground all around, and rocky formations all over the place. Everyone dove to the side, getting away from the tunnel entrance as the demon burst through, letting out a loud roar as it skidded to a halt on the rock, bellowing to the sky above and alerting every goddamn thing in earshot that we had arrived. All 5 of us got to our feet, aiming guns at it and preparing to fire. Its blazing eyes looked to each of us in turn, almost daring us to shoot at it. Pit was the first to open fire, a bullet glancing off one of the massive horns as it opened its mouth wide and pounced, jumping right on him. I heard him scream as sharp fangs tore into his shoulder, biting deep before rearing its head back, splashing blood all over and raveling as it soaked its chin. Pit screamed again, raising his gun through the pain and emptying a full clip into the demon from point blank. This only served to make it mad though, and it lowered open jaws once more, chomping down on Pit's head and tearing it off in one clean bite. A massive spray of blood going everywhere.
No!
Marcus screamed, pulling the trigger on his gun as the rest of us did the same, aiming for whatever open flesh we could on the creature. Shots only pinged off the scales with no use as the demon looked at us, Pit's head staring vacantly from between its massive teeth, a scream of horror ringing silently from his mouth.
Sitzen!
A voice came from the distance, booming across the hellscape. The demon obeyed almost immediately, like a damn dog hearing its master. It kept Pit's head in its jaw for a moment before the voice came again. Gute Junge, speisen. With that last command, it crunched down, popping Pit's eyes from his disembodied head and causing more blood to gush from its lips. It swallowed, a look of satisfaction on its face. From the flames nearby, a man emerged, dressed in an old Nazi officer's uniform, hair cut neatly and slicked back with small glasses near the tip of his nose. He smiled at us as he stepped out onto the rocks nearby, motioning for the demon to go away. It began to slink back into the tunnel, a low grumble emanating from its throat as it licked its lips, staring us all down one by one while it passed.
Celine,
You did not alert me that you were back, meine Liebe. I see your mission was successful, he said, looking directly at her. She only looked at him, stone-faced as she walked over. I told him we couldn't trust a fucking Nazi. Marcus spat in their direction. The officer simply smiled, looking at Celine as she now stood by him. Where is my daughter? She asked. Safe with her father, of course, though she's become quite accustomed to her new lifestyle, he said, gesturing off into the distance. He's been waiting for you. Celine, I said, keeping my voice steady. You're going to die along with everyone else in here. You understand that? I welcome it, she said in return, stone-faced. Americans, always so self-assured. The man smiled, chuckling to himself. Now, let us not keep the Führer waiting any longer. He's very hungry. He turned, walking to the edge of the rocky cliff we were standing on and looking to the fires below. With a wave of his hand, stone began shifting, rising on air to meet him and form a pathway to walk on. I noticed faint blue light forming around his hand, swirling to connect with the levitating rocks as he controlled them with some form of magic. Celine followed, turning from us with one last glare. Come now, he shouted at us. How he just expected us to follow him was very cocky, especially considering we still had weapons in hand and weren't going to go without a fight. I fired off a shot, hitting him right in the shoulder from behind. He didn't even move, simply turning back to face us with a sigh. Fine, we will do it the hard way. Guards! 4 massive winged demons suddenly flew up from below the cliffside, wings beating hot air towards us as they descended to our level. Marcus fired off 2 shots, but they bounced off the scales with next to no problem. One of Vera's ended up hitting one right through the leathery membrane of its wing, punching a small hole in it that caused the demon to howl in anger. It started to swipe before the officer gave it a new command, causing it to simply pick her up and squeeze her in one of its massive hands. The others followed suit, one grabbing Marcus before another reached for me. I tried firing at its head, but my first shot missed, the second barely grazing one of the horns before I felt massive, skilled claws wrapping around my body. Immediately, it squeezed, and I felt my breath rush from me as I fought for air.
Onward,
the officer said, moving along the levitating rock path once more. The demon holding us took off, massive wings beating hot air into our faces that made it hard to breathe. As we passed over the rocky cliff, I could see what lay below, and it made me dread what our fate may be even if we made it out of here alive. Miles and miles of pits full of fire and bodies, not dead, but writhing in agony. From my bird's eye view, I could see that they were still alive, in whatever sense of that word that could mean down here at least. They were crawling over each other, some screaming in pain, others rocking in the fetal position. Every single one looked burnt, singed beyond recognition, as more demons from below wandered amongst them, torturing at their leisure. Big ones with wings like the ones holding us, massive four-legged beasts like the one that killed Pitt, and even more that were just imps, small little things that were like damn toddlers wandering among the burning bodies, poking at some with long staffs and giggling as they screamed in pain. I saw a couple of them gathered around one body, flaying off burnt flesh from the sinew underneath. The person it belonged to staring up at the clouded sky with vacant eyes, mouth open in a perpetual scream, begging for its afterlife to end, begging for relief as they simply peeled more skin away. Even as it came off, I could see new skin growing over it that they just targeted again, laughing madly while they brought as much pain as possible to the tortured souls below. Worse than the images below me was the smell, a mix of burning, rotting flesh and the worst stench of sulfur I'd ever had the misfortune of inhaling. I felt like I was going to choke even as the demon was squeezing the damned life out of me, hard claws pressed into my ribcage, jostling me with every beat of its wings. After a few minutes, or hell, it could have been hours, I think I lost consciousness once or twice from the restricted airflow. We touched down on another rocky formation, the officer and Celine standing at the ready before a massive stone throne situated in the middle. The demons let us down, all three of us gasping for air as we fell to the stone ground beneath. As we looked up, we could see a body sitting on the throne nearby, though most of its head was missing. The right side of the face was relatively fine, but the left side was blown out, like a gunshot had gone right through it and taken out a lot of that side of the skull on top, complete with a missing left eye and brain matter falling out of the gaping hole. As we watched, the body stood, moving closer to us as it inspected. "Gifts for you, mein Führer." The officer bowed, stepping back and sweeping a hand towards us in presentation. It hit me then that this was him, Hitler, the goddamn architect of one of the worst atrocities in human history, standing before us in the pits of hell. His right eye shone with fire as he looked us over, inspecting each of us one by one as the demons pulled us to our feet. When he got to Vera, he put a hand on her face, caressing her cheek gently before moving on, poking Marcus in the belly as he looked at him. "We needed 4 for the king," he muttered, looking to the officer. "Yes, mein Führer. Unfortunately, one of them was killed during the descent from the surface. However, we do have her." He pointed to Celine now, who suddenly turned from stone-faced to anger. "No, you promised me, swore to me, that if I brought the last sacrifices, my daughter and I could go free." She began to shout, raising a hand to slap Hitler before a great roar sprang up from the fiery pits below. Hitler began to laugh. "Oh, I swore to you?" He grinned, sinew exposed in the left side of his face, fragments of bone and teeth mashed into the skin. "I have sworn to only one since I have been here." The ground beneath us trembled, shaking as something moved. It only took moments to see it as it lumbered into view from the distance. A demon, larger than the others and towering high above the rocks we were standing on, stepped forward in the distance. It only took minutes for its great strides to reach us. eyes burning with millions of smaller flames, and a great maw that could swallow entire buildings whole if it so wished. The scales on it were massive, greater than anything I'd ever seen. The sheer size of it almost made me want to shut my brain off for fear of what it could mean.
Behold, the great defiler, the Lord of the Flies, he who will bring about our Fourth Reich on Earth,
Hitler screamed, bowing before the massive demon. As he did, it began to speak.
Have you honored your part of this bargain?
God, it felt like the voice was inside my head, even though it was shaking the entire ground around me. I looked down, trying to get my balance as dizziness began to set in, noticing lines drawn on the ground in a massive circle before the stone throne.
The remaining sacrifices are here, my lord,
Hitler said, still in a deep bow, daring not to look at the hulking demon before him. The great beast began to shrink down as he spoke, and my eyes barely believed it as he eventually stepped down onto the stone ground alongside us. An incredibly handsome man with flowing blonde hair, almost glowing with radiant light as he stood before the feeble former ruler of the Third Reich. Hitler spoke again.
Have you already partaken of the virgin I gave you, Lord?
She was adequate, Satan answered, looking us all over now before turning his eyes to Celine.
This is her mother?
Indeed, my lord. This whore is the last of the sacrifices, he replied.
You son of a bitch,
Celine shouted, raising the gun that she still holstered at her side and firing off a shot at Satan. The bullet glanced off his skin like it was made of fucking titanium. With barely a reaction from him, he moved towards her, total calm on his face as he looked her from top to bottom. Vera nudged me then, nodding to the ground we were standing on. I realized there were marks etched into the stone, formed into a massive circle of ruins, the focal point of the Hell Gate. We need blood to activate it, she mouthed, taking care that none of the Nazis were looking. Satan was busy staring Celine down, now caressing a hand from her cheek down to her chest, staring at her with hunger.
Your child was delightful. Will you live up to that same feeling?
He asked, putting his mouth to her neck and taking a bite, drawing a slight bit of blood before leaning back and licking his lips, savoring it. I had half a hope that some of his blood would drop to the ground and let us activate the circle, but I knew it would take more than that. I slowly slid a knife from my belt, trying to be discreet about it, but the officer saw me, shouting to the demons around us.
9! Stop them! Take their weapons and hold them down until the Great Lord is ready.
The officer shouted, motioning for the demons still standing off to the side to take hold of us. Suddenly, I was shoved to the ground from behind, the massive, scaly claws pushing us down into the rocky surface hard, almost squeezing the air from my lungs once more.
Now, what is it you desire from me in return for these sacrifices?
Satan asked Hitler.
I desire the earth, my lord, to reign for a millennia as the Fourth Reich,
he said, kneeling in front of him and bowed his head.
I will prepare the world for your coming reign. Soak the oceans with the blood of those who are impure. Create great cities in your honor for the demons to rule. I will do whatever you ask of me. All I ask is for a sliver of power to do it with. So be it,
Satan answered, waving him off without a care. Celine just stood there, looking to the ground, eyes welling with tears.
Where is my daughter?
She asked.
Are you not listening? Your daughter is dead. I used her for my own pleasure, then devoured her,
Satan said, barely glancing back at her as he walked off. Celine only let out a choked sob, collapsing to the ground on her knees. Pressed to the floor, Vera and I were facing each other. I noticed her whispering something under her breath, but it took a minute to figure out what. Latin. She was chanting the rites to close the Hell Gate that was right beneath our feet, hoping that blood would spill on the circle from anywhere and complete the ritual. She just stared at me as she chanted, nodding briefly for me to do whatever I needed to in order to finish out our job. I nodded back, mind racing as I try to figure out the best way to spill any kind of blood I could on the circle. Before the idea hit me. Deep breath in. Can't hesitate now, Harker. Open wide, stick your tongue out, and bite down hard. You've been through worse pain. It's much harder than I expected it to be, but after a couple of hard bites and working through the pain, I managed to get through it. For good measure, I sucked in my cheek and bit it too, getting a good amount of blood flowing that I then spat out onto the ground nearby. Vera kept chanting, a faint glow beginning to emanate from the circle as she grew louder. The officer noticed first, shouting for someone to stop her. But it was too late. Satan only looked at us as Hitler began to screech curses left and right, looking around for a weapon to try and kill Vera with. He stomped over, desperately attempting to curb stomp her, but was too late. As the hell gate began to close, reality began to warp around us, driving the demons away while they screamed into the air, hot air beating from their wings. I stood, punching him in the injured side of his face and feeling his jawbones grip my knuckles as Vera continued her ritual, the circle glowing ever brighter. Marcus stood, reaching for the pistol on the ground nearby that had been dropped, and fired off a shot at the officer to keep him at bay. Satan smiled, looking me in the eyes, as blood dripped from my mouth. God damn, it hurt. But I've got to say, it's not the worst thing that could have happened during all of this. You simply delay the inevitable. My reign will come soon, with or without these stooges, he said, looking at Hitler now.
No, kill them, my liege. I have honored our bargain. Why would you let them get away?
Hitler screamed, rushing at Satan now. The Dark Lord raised a hand, flicking his wrist and sending the Führer flying off into the fiery pits below. I will see you soon. I'm sure of it. Reality crumbled around us, the fiery pits fading into nothingness as the rocky ground phased in and out, before finally being replaced by solid concrete. Halogen bulbs flickered above suddenly, cold air replacing the hot, sulfur-fumed atmosphere around us, as we were suddenly in the depths of the bunker. Celine and the officer were in the room with us. She collapsed, sobbing in grief as the officer stared forward, Marcus holding a gun to his head. He put his hands up, trying to motion in surrender.
Still got those explosives?
I asked Marcus, though it comes out garbled thanks to how mangled my mouth is now. He nodded, tilting his head towards the tack pack still on the ground nearby. I opened it, grabbing out a few blocks of C4, setting them up strategically around the room as the officer began to cry, begging for his life. When the last one was set, I grabbed the detonator, arming it with a loud beep.
Please, I can be of use. Spare me. Bring me to your commanders. I will tell them all I know.
The officer was pleading, blubbering with fear while we went about our work. Vera and Marcus walked to the doorway, peering out the stairs to ensure there was nothing there. Celine just sat on the ground, staring at the officer with hatred in her eyes. I threw her a knife. We're not letting you out of here alive, but I don't care what you do after we're gone, I said. The officer jumped at the knife on the ground, but didn't make it before Marcus fired off a shot, hitting him in the kneecap. One more round went off, hitting him in the opposite knee for good measure.
That's for Pitt.
He spat on the officer before walking out of the room. Celine only looked at me before gently picking the knife off the ground, holding it up to see the edge shine in the light. Vera and I walked out, closing the door behind us as the officer began to scream. We made the walk back to the surface, reaching the cold, frozen wasteland, and to our surprise, the now extinguished wreckage of our plane. We huddled inside it for shelter from the elements before pressing the button on the detonator. Loud explosions shaking the ground beneath us as the small building, the only sign that there was anything below the surface here, began to smoke and catch fire. Hours passed, sitting in the wreckage, before a plane flew over. Vera and Marcus went outside, waving them down and firing off flares to get their attention, as if they were needed with the smoking pile of debris still burning deep under the ground. After it landed, a pilot and a couple of agents greeted us, running forward and bringing us onto the plane, explaining that they had a tracker on it in case of an emergency like this. We're heading back to the collective for debrief now. Though I can't say I'm eager to do much talking. I'm definitely putting in for vacation time after this. Maybe I'll see if Vera wants to join me. I would say we've earned it. At the very least.